Inside a bedroom in the palace at Jerusalem, a woman named Jehosheba is doing something that could get her killed the moment anyone finds out. She's hiding a baby, an infant, not even a year old, inside a storage room for bedding, right next to the temple, praying he doesn't make a sound. Outside that room, the woman hunting him isn't a foreign invader. She isn't an enemy general. She's his own grandmother, and she's already killed every other child in the family to make sure this exact moment never happens. Her name is Athaliah, and for the next 6 years, she is going to sit on the throne of Judah as the only woman to ever rule the kingdom outright, a throne she built by murdering her own grandchildren. This is one of the darkest 6 years buried anywhere in the Old Testament, and almost nobody talks about it. Let's go back to the beginning, because the woman behind this didn't come out of nowhere. She was raised for exactly this. To understand Athaliah, you have to understand where she came from. She's the daughter of Ahab and Jezebel. Yes, that Jezebel, the queen who imported Baal worship into Israel and had God's prophets hunted down. Athaliah didn't grow up watching that from a distance. She grew up inside it. She's married off to Jehoram, king of Judah, Israel's southern neighbor, in another one of those political alliances that looks smart on paper and turns out to be a slow-burning disaster. And she doesn't leave her family's habits behind when she crosses the border. Once she's queen of Judah, the text says her husband Jehoram walks in the ways of the kings of Israel, just as Ahab's house had done, because he's married to Ahab's daughter. Then, when their son Ahaziah takes the throne after him, the pattern repeats. The text is blunt about who's really steering the ship. His mother was his counselor to do wickedly. Ahaziah reigns for exactly 1 year. 1. Then he's killed during a violent coup up north, a commander named Jehu wiping out the entire house of Ahab, fulfilling that old prophecy about dogs and Jezebel that we covered last episode. And back in Jerusalem, Athaliah gets the news that her son, the king, is dead. Most mothers would grieve. Athaliah does something almost nobody in the entire Bible does. She looks at the throne sitting empty and decides she's not giving it up to anyone, including her own bloodline. Here's the sentence that should stop you cold. The Bible says that when Athaliah saw that her son was dead, she rose up and destroyed all the royal seed. All of it. Her own grandchildren, princes and princesses, the entire next generation of the royal line of David, the same line God had promised would never be cut off, and their own grandmother is the one trying to end it. Think about the logistics of that sentence for a second. This isn't a moment of rage. It's a coordinated purge, likely carried out over days, hunting down children across the palace grounds, room by room, to clear every possible rival to the throne. A grandmother systematically erasing her own family so nothing stands between her and the crown. And it almost works completely, except for one gap she doesn't know about. Jehosheba, Ahaziah's sister, which makes her Athaliah's own daughter or stepdaughter depending on the account, gets to one baby before the purge reaches him. His name is Joash, barely a year old. She steals him out from under the noses of the men doing the killing and hides him and his nurse in a bedroom used for storing bedding, tucked away beside the temple. For 6 years, that baby doesn't leave hiding. 6 years of a toddler growing into a small boy, raised behind locked doors, while his own grandmother sits on his throne, believing the entire bloodline is dead. And Athaliah rules. 6 full years. The only woman in the Bible to hold the throne of Judah in her own name, not as a regent, not standing in for anyone, sitting on it directly. The text doesn't spend much time on those 6 years, and that silence says something on its own. It's not describing a golden age, it's describing a kingdom holding its breath, a usurper queen ruling over a nation that watched her butcher the royal family to get there. Meanwhile, inside the temple complex, a priest named Jehoiada is doing something almost as dangerous as what Jehosheba did. He's raising the boy in secret, waiting and quietly building something Athaliah has no idea exists: loyalty. Year after year, he's making contact with the commanders of the guard, testing who can be trusted, slowly assembling the people who are going to help him do what looks, on the surface, completely impossible: overthrow a sitting queen and put a 7-year-old on the throne in her place. 6 years of patience, 6 years of a secret growing right under the usurper's own roof, inside her own temple, a few hundred feet from her own palace. Then, in the 7th year, Jehoiada decides it's time.
This is one of the most tightly planned operations in the entire Old Testament, and it reads almost like a heist. Jehoiada calls in the commanders of the guard and lays out the plan. On the Sabbath, when shift changes normally happen anyway, he arranges for far more soldiers than usual to be stationed around the temple and the palace without it looking unusual, because troop rotations are routine on that day. Every soldier is armed, some carrying weapons that once belonged to King David himself, kept in storage inside the temple for exactly this kind of moment. They form a human wall, soldiers positioned around the boy, around the altar, around every entrance, so no one can reach him. Then Jehoiada brings the boy out. He puts the crown on Joash's head, hands him a copy of the covenant, and anoints him king right there in the temple. The people start clapping and shouting, "Long live the king!" And the noise is loud enough that it reaches the palace. Athaliah hears it, and she does something that, in hindsight, is almost unbelievable. She walks toward the noise herself, straight into the temple courtyard to see what's happening. What she sees is a 7-year-old boy standing by a pillar, crowned, with trumpets sounding, and the entire crowd celebrating around him. And in that instant, she understands exactly what's happened. 6 years of belief she'd wiped out the whole bloodline, undone in a single moment. She tears her own clothes and screams, "Treason! Treason!" But there's no one left to answer her. Jehoiada has already given the order: take her out of the temple, away from the altar, and don't let her be killed on holy ground. She's led out through the horse gate to the palace and executed there. Just like that, 6 years of a usurper's throne end, and a boy who spent his entire childhood hidden in a bedding closet becomes king of Judah at 7 years old. The aftermath moves fast. Jehoiada makes a covenant between the king, the people, and God, a formal reset. And then the crowd does something that tells you exactly how they felt about the last 6 years. They go straight to the temple of Baal that Athaliah had built, tear it down completely, smash the altars and the idols, and kill the priest of Baal right at his own altar. 6 years of a usurper's religion dismantled in an afternoon, the same pattern we saw with her mother, Jezebel, on Mount Carmel, playing out a second time, 1 generation later. And there's something almost unbearably ironic sitting at the center of this whole story. Athaliah spent years trying to erase every trace of the line of David so her own reign would be secure, but the entire reason her plan failed comes down to one detail she never accounted for. The same bloodline she tried to wipe out was also her own. She's not just killing rivals, she's the grandmother of every child she orders murdered. The purge that was supposed to protect her throne is also, quite literally, an attack on her own family, carried out by her own hand. And the one child that slips through, Joash, survives specifically because someone inside that same family chose loyalty to the promise over loyalty to her.
6 years, one stolen throne, a grandmother willing to kill her own grandchildren to sit on it, and in the end, undone by a single baby smuggled into a linen closet and raised in secret for years, waiting for one Sabbath morning. It's one of the most brutal stories in the Old Testament, and it barely gets mentioned outside of a single chapter most people never read. But it's sitting